natural down. A slow walk over to that Enzo buff. Nice. Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we're going over my updated Ajax build. Now, Ajax received a plethora of buffs, but he also got nerfed. And today we're going to be going over a bunch of different builds for him for bossing, where we are able to pump up over 100% firearm attack damage and actually do massive gun damage on Ajax. I've come up with like a really creative thing that makes him actually a really good bosser. And he's got good survivability. We were out damaging Glaze and Enzo's on Gluttony with him, and he helps the entire team. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy that setup. Then we've got a mobbing build, which it just got buffed, which is even more jump spammy. You can jump around constantly, draining 0 mana and constantly hitting for big AoE. And then we've got a dungeon build on him, where you're going to be able to hit for like 600, 700,000 damage on a spam void explosion skill, and just have a really good time in both dungeons and invasion content. I am like so unbelievably happy with the way that these builds turned out. So I really hope you enjoy them. And they have just drastically improved my opinions on Ajax after playing all of them. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. So the order for this video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about his like bossing build first, and then we'll get into the mobbing and dungeon builds, as they're pretty different and use like different reactors and different stuff. But for the bossing build, you're going to want to be using a few different synergies that are kind of crazy. So the first synergy that we're going to be using is the Transcendent module, Matrix Recomputation. This is for Ultimate Ajax and normal Ajax. It's not like an Ultimate exclusive. Basically, this allows your 3 ability, which normally is for big damage, to actually give you and your teammates a buff. You're going to get Defense Simplification, which gives you a 50% increase to your defense. Note that this does not take into account increased defense mods, so it only gives you a buff off of your base defense and the defense that you have on your components. So it might not look like it's 50% all the time, but it is giving you a big defense increase. It's also going to give you and your allies shield diversification, which is going to increase their shield amounts, your shield amounts, and also give you continuous shield recovery. Now, this mod used to be pretty broken. They actually fixed it where it used to be able to give you like 150,000 shield. Now that 150,000 shield has turned to like 9 to 10k shield, and we've built it so that we're not actually using any shield at all. We really do not care about shield. Now, this is still a buff for your allies to get more shield, right? And your allies are still going to get the like defense increase, so you're still buffing your teammates. But the reason we're not going to be building shield on this Ajax is because I wanted to be able to use him against Gluttony. I wanted my Ajax to be able to shield myself and my teammates from Gluttony. And in order to do that, both the barrier, which scales off of your HP and your defense, and the hypercube need to be, they're both scaled off of HP and defense. They do not take your shield into account. So building shield is actively hurting your barriers, and if you build full shield, you put up your barriers and all of a sudden they're gone, and then that 9k shield doesn't do all that much against Gluttony damage. So the way that we've built this, we're able to build up barriers that are having tons of HP, tons of defense, and can tank Gluttony shots for you, which is incredible. But the other huge thing about Matrix is it's going to allow us to buff our allies, right? And what that allows us to use is Passionate Sponsor. Now, Passionate Sponsor gives us a up to 75% gun damage increase or firearm attack when we are hitting our teammates with Passionate Sponsor. Matrix Recomputation, if you join a fight, we'll go over like the full rotation, but if you join a fight, you start clicking this, you're going to be getting Passionate Sponsor from your teammates because you're giving them a buff. If you use this enough times and then you get your Void Energy, you can click your Hypercube and then you cast Enhanced Barrier. If your allies are walking in and out of Enhanced Barrier, at any time, you're going to get a stack of Passionate Sponsor. So just pushing this down is going to give you more continuous duration on your Passionate Sponsor, and it's going to give you 10% more gun damage. And then we're pairing that with Shot Focus to get another 10% gun damage. So off of Shot Focus and Passionate Sponsor, we're getting 90% gun damage. And then with the fourth ability, we're going to get another 10% for the 100% increased gun damage of Void Ajax. And this setup was allowing me to put out 50 million damage in like a minute on Gluttony using an Enduring Legacy. We'll talk about the other mods, but that's the like theory and the crafting behind this is make the barriers as tanky as possible so that we can avoid damage and help our teammates and be like kind of like up in bosses' faces and be that tank, but also be able to dish out damage. You know, we wanted Ajax to not just be there to be support. Now with this setup, he can actually dish out some really serious damage, and that is the concept behind the build. Now, for important mods here, we're using Nimble Fingers and Time Distribution for our cooldown. I originally had MP Conversion here, but I opted for Time so that we could get more HP. We're also going to be using Maximize Conservation. We're not doing ability damage here. We don't care about ability damage, so Maximize Conservation allows us to use our skills more. We're also going to be popping in a Maximize Range. If you wanted to level up your Matrix 1 or put a like Catalyst on Passionate or Shot Focus, you could use a full Maximize Range. The reason we want range, but not too much range, is we want to be able to comfortably hit allies with Matrix Recomputation so that we can keep up our Passionate Sponsor, but we don't want a like bubble that's too big that the enemies can like kind of walk into it and damage us. And so we're just using one range mod, Maximize Range, but not too much range. This works out really well. We're also going to be using Increased Defense. Once again, the barriers scale off of our defense, and we're going to be getting more defense from our defense simplification. We're also going to be using Sensory Depth. This increases reduces the amount of damage that we're going to take. This is a massive help in survivability. If you wanted to like catalyze multiple slots for resistances against different elements, you could. I opted for this to reduce the amount of damage that's going to be coming in, and the max MP doesn't really matter to us because we've got like a bunch of like skill cost stuff. Lastly, we're going Stim Accelerant for max HP and less max MP. Once again, Maximize Conservation is really balancing these things out. Then we've got increased HP, more survivability, and lastly, Passionate Sponsor and Shot Focus so that we are able to buff up our guns a bunch. With this build, you've got enough cooldown to spam your Matrix Recomp to get your allies to get shield and defense. You're buffing yourself up, and you're going to be able to put down barriers to help yourself and your team. If you're looking for a build to really help in public lobbies, this is a great option. Obviously, there's a lot of really cool supports. Ajax, not really looked at as having that much damage. With this setup, you will be bringing the damage to fights. Now, obviously, we're getting a bunch of gun buffs, but we still need a gun to shoot. My preference is going to be the Enduring Legacy. Let me move my camera so that you can see it. But this is my Enduring Legacy build. I posted it a few weeks ago. I haven't changed it. I still like it. The only thing that I have tweaked is if you are specifically bringing this for bossing, you can bring Have Aiming if you're fighting like a close boss. It's going to give you a little bit more weak point damage at the cost of some accuracy. Obviously, if you're fighting a boss that you need a bit more accuracy on, like something like Dead Bride, weak point sight is also great there. But this is my Enduring Legacy build, and if you just sit with Ajax, get all these damage buffs, and then shoot this thing, you're doing like over 300,000 damage a bullet, which is just ridiculous. It is really, really nice. The other neat weapon that you can use is Nazeistra's Devotion. Obviously, that has the ability to drop enemies' defense with its unique ability. But if you're about to lose Passionate Sponsor, if you get a stack of it, all of your stacks refresh. So let's say you don't have a teammate that's near you, one of them has run off, and you want to keep your 100% gun damage, you can just shoot them with Nazeistras from afar. It does cost a lot of MP, so it's something to keep in mind, but you'll get 30% shield recovery. We don't care about the shield recovery. What we do care about is that this procs Passionate Sponsor, and all of your stacks of Passionate Sponsor refresh if you ever lose a stack. So you just shoot your Nazeistras if you're about to lose your stacks at an ally, or if you need to gain some stacks and they're far away because they're not sticking with you because they don't understand how Ajax works. then you can kind of keep up that passionate sponsor, keep up that gun damage by using the Nazeistras. Next up, we get to talk about his mobbing build, but before we do, we need to talk about the Secret Garden. Now, for the mobbing build, I prefer the mod Void Charge. This is going to change your third ability into a dimension ability. It just got buffed, so now it gives us 2 stacks of Void Charge. Void Charge has right now we've got an 18-meter radius on it, on a 1 second cooldown, with 2 stacks, and constantly getting this enhanced. You're able to spam jumps nonstop. But note that we've got a tech ability that we're going to be spamming, and a dimension ability that we're going to be spamming. The Secret Garden has the unique ability Gardener. This reads, when using a dimension skill, recover custom resources with a set chance. When we use a tech skill, grant the unique ability Pest Control. So the 3 ability is going to give us a 39% chance to get 10% custom resources. This is really nice because this gives you extra resources or your void energy so that you can use your enhanced skills more often. But the real kicker here is that every time we jump, we have a chance, 50% chance on jump to trigger increased firearm attack, but more importantly, skill damage. This, while holding it, is going to be stacking up 37% increased skill damage, which is a massive damage increase. If I'm just holding this right now, you'll see my first jump does 327 damage. Our second jump does, 328? 358. That was 358. Let's see if we can get a third stack. There's 390. Now we can just upkeep our 390. Just holding this weapon will actively increase the damage of your skills. And then when we get to an enhanced ability, now we can double click our Void Expulsion and get a bunch of custom resources back, and then just go back right into jumping. This setup and the Secret Garden go so freaking well together. For a mobbing build on the Secret Garden, this is what I'm rocking. I will have a full video out on the Secret Garden, but for Ajax, pretty much using this for mobbing and the enduring for bossing. So I went with Sweeping Squad. You can easily swap this out for mental focus with a mag size if you really want. But the Secret Garden's real ability is the fact that it gets so much crit hit rate. We're at 75% crit hit rate with a 4.6 multiplier. You could use Edging Shot here. Edging Shot is good, but you lose a fair bit of firearm attack. And unfortunately, for special round weapons on concentration priority, they don't get nearly as much as general rounds. General rounds get 120% increased crit damage multiplier. Concentration only has a 47%. So you're not able to get as much crit damage, which is why we're not opting to go for the minus 15% firearm attack. But basically, this weapon hits like a truck. It's going to be critting all over the place. And by playing Ajax, you're only going to be buffing its firearm attack by another 32%. And Sweeping Squad can proc off your ability kills. So if you're killing enemies with jumping, and then there's Elite that you need to shoot, without even having to shoot your gun, you're just going to have Sweeping Squad already built up. And then you can fire this thing with 30% more gun damage. And then from the Pest Control, you're going to have another 30% gun damage. And you will just straight up one burst bosses and elites. It is kind of nuts. Secret Garden, very, very good for Ajax. Now I get to the mobbing actual builds and modules. And there's a few important things to note here. The build from my original build hasn't changed very much. We've added basically 2 modules that weren't there before. Some really key components here is we want as much cooldown as possible. Nimble Fingers, MP conversion, focus on non-attribute, focus on tech is going to give us a lot of cooldown. As you can see, this is on a 3.1 second cooldown. If we do our jumps to get our enhanced skill up, now, when we check R1, it is on a 1.2 second cooldown. So you're able to, on this build, jump a lot. That is the whole goal. In order to achieve that, we needed a lot of cooldown. If you get cooldown on your reactor, this gets even more insane. But with the 2 charges, you can kind of spam this indefinitely. But of course, with spam, we want to be able to use the skill often. So we're going to be using Maximize Conservation for more skill cost reduction. We are losing some modifier here, but Focus on Tech is more than balancing that out. With Maximize Range Skill Expansion, we are getting to almost max skill range. I do have range on my reactor right now, which caps us out at the max 2x of skill range on it. And then lastly, We opted for, this is new on the build, is HP amplification. We didn't have this before. I just wanted to be really tanky on him running around. You could opt for like a spear and shield mod if you really wanted to. One thing to note is that Void Charge does scale off of your defense. So if you have more defense, this does more damage. The reason I'm not using a defense mod is because the percent scaling on this is still terrible. They buffed it from 3% up to 17%. We'll do a little bit of math to show you why this is so bad. So let's say we change that extra HP into a full defense mod. That's going to put us with our current setup to 41,000 defense, which is like a lot of defense. If we pull out our handy dandy Desmos calculator, we are at 41,390 times 0.17, and that's going to add 7,000 flat damage to our jump, which in the grand scheme of things, when we're already hitting for like 390,000, is not all that much. It's really, unfortunately, still not great. It's just flat added damage. It doesn't like do anything funky. In order, like for example, if we had 100,000 defense, we would still only be getting 17,000 more damage, which is a very small fraction of the amount of damage that we're doing. So I personally just opted to go for an HP module there and get more tanky and basically never be able to die. So that's why we're using HP amplification there. It's going to give us up to our like 24,000 HP. And we've still got a fair bit of defense. So we're still getting damage from that. 15,000 defense is still pretty solid. But I went for the more HP so that we had more survivability. And lastly, MP Collector is what I like to use. You're killing tons of enemies on this build. MP Collector is a great kick for extra energy. If you're playing in a group, Energy Collection is a great substitute. You can swap this out, and then you get more energy recovery passively and from the orbs on the ground. Both are really good. It kind of comes down to personal preference. And lastly, we have our invasion/dungeon build. The big difference for why the mobbing build is different than invasion/dungeon, you can absolutely use the mobbing build in invasion/dungeons. The mobbing build gives you a ton of mobility with Void Charge, and you have like infinite uses of it. So like getting through the dungeon very quickly can feel really good. The only reason that they're different is because Void Explosion allows us to stack up multiple charges of the 3, and the 3 hits for a lot more damage than the 2 does. So basically, rather with the mobbing build, you're spamming a lower damage ability. The 3 is less, or the dungeon build/invasion build is less mobility, but you're getting a lot more damage off of your abilities because we're going to be able to use Void Explosion. On this build, we are going to be using a defense mod plus 2 HP mods. So not only is it going to be hitting harder with its abilities than the mobbing build, but it's still going to have also more survivability, where we're going to be at like 25,000 HP and 30,000 defense with a bunch of like ability range and damage. So all really nice things. Void Explosion allows us to stack up 2 charges of our 2. And so basically what you're doing is you're going to be jumping around towards ads and then spamming your Void Explosion, which, by the way, is like unbelievably spammable. If you want to just keep clicking it, you can kind of keep clicking it. If it goes down on cooldown, you could jump and then jump around, keep spamming it. But I mean, there you just saw it hit for 850,000 damage. So it is much harder hitting. We just showed off the like jump was hitting like 390. That was 850,000. So it just hits a little bit harder, and it's got a little bit more tanky, but it's not as fun. You don't get to play as a kangaroo. And so that is our invasion dungeon build. We're still rocking maximize range. We've still got a ton of cooldown. We've still got our conservation. We still got HP. And once again, MP collector versus energy collection is entirely up to you. Lastly, we get to talk about reactors and external components. For a reactor, you're going to want a secret garden mounting with non-attribute and tech. Right now, this week is a really good secret garden non-attribute tech reactor farm. I will have a link to like our best farms of the week. It took me about like 2-3 hours to farm for this thing. We got tech skill boost ratio and effect range. Effect range does put us at a fair bit over max range. I think you absolutely want either tech boost ratio or non-attribute. Getting both is fantastic. If you can get cooldown, that's great. If you can get skill cost reduction, that's great. But you're looking for some sort of combo of boost ratios, range, cooldown, and cost is what I would look for on my Ajax. The perfect one that I was personally looking for was just tech boost ratio, non-attribute, and just squeeze as much damage out of him as we could. But that is our Reactor. Next up for our components, I'm just prioritizing good rolls on components and survivability. On our sensor, we've got defense with MP recovery in combat, max MP. This is god roll for me. For our memory, we've got max HP with gold defense and MP recovery modifier. This is like just slightly off of a god roll. On our top piece, we've got max HP double rolled. Only thing that's missing here is like mana out of combat, which would be fantastic, especially on Ajax. And then on our bottom piece, we've got max HP and max shield with increased item acquisition distance increase modifier. So just going for a lot of quality of life and some extra duration. But one thing to note about Ajax is if you are going to take him into Gluttony for like the Gunjax build, for example, the 4th barrier scales with your chill resistance, same with the 1. And so if you're trying to take Ajax into particularly hard fights, it's really nice to actually bring in some extra like chill resistance that was helping me tank a few extra hits. So like, for example, I swapped to this annihilation sensor. It's not great, but it gave me defense, max MP, and chill resistance, and that will help your barriers soak up extra damage. So if you need a little bit of extra survivability for some fights, it's not a bad idea to try to find some things like fire resistance, toxic resistance on your bottom piece, chill resistance. All of those things will definitely help your barriers survive more hits from harder bosses. For your inversion buffs, these are all basically getting reworked in a few days, so I wouldn't focus on them too much, but you can use biodensity augmentation to give you more max HP. Arche assimilation will allow you to heal when you're standing near your allies, which hopefully your allies will stand in your bubble. And then lastly, you can kind of grab any of these survival ones to get some extra decreased incoming damage. All of which are pretty nice. Guys, this is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what character you want to see a build for next. Obviously, we are updating a lot of builds for old characters because with the old catalyzation system, we had to make multiple builds all fit into one kind of format. Now we can really min-max these characters, which is so much fun for me. But we do have some characters that we still haven't fully put out build guides for. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.